So now we're going to be looking at freedom of belief. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So religious freedom or freedom of belief is basically a principle for giving freedom, as it says in the name, to people to practice their religion openly and to speak of their beliefs and to practice their religion, by teaching, following religious practices or celebrating religious festivals. The freedom, to change one's religion or not to follow religion at all also is included within this term. So on the basis of what we have discussed, obviously, of the two pillars of Tawheed, negation and affirmation, it becomes clear how dangerous the call for freedom of belief is. This is because the laws governing freedom of belief do not recognize disbelief in Tawhid, rather they approve of everything that is worshipped besides Allah. This freedom gives people the right to worship whatever they want, at the same time as preventing others from objecting to that or refuting its falsehood. Undoubtedly, this is contrary to belief in Tawheed, one of the most important aspects of which is worshipping Allah alone with no partner or associate, and disbelieving in and rejoicing in everything that is worshipped besides Allah. That is disbelief in Tawhid, which is obligatory for the one that believes in the oneness of Allah, as he is required to declare openly his disavowal of disbelief and its people, and this is the clear truth. So moving on now to the next bit, which is the categories of Tawheed. So now that we've studied the importance of Tawheed on the individual, now that we have studied the impact, the evidences, now we need to talk about the different categories of Tawheed, which we need to obviously study individually as well. So the scholars have divided Tawheed into three categories. So the first Tawheed is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, which is the oneness of lordship, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his lordship. The next one is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, which is the oneness of divinity, and you probably won't understand these things right now, but I will be covering Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, and and obviously the third thing is Tawheed al-Asma wal-Sifat, which is the oneness of believing in the beautiful names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the term Rububiyyah comes from the root Rababa, from which becomes the word Ar-Rab. When mentioned without qualification, the word Ar-Rab is obviously referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord Ar-Rab, as he is the Lord of all things, and to him belongs lordship over all creation with no partner or associates. In relation to anyone other than Allah, the word Rab only appears in in idafa, in genitive construction. So in terms of the evidence, one example of that being seen in the verse is in Surah Yusuf verse 42, and he said to the one whom he knew would go free, mention me before your master. So in Islamic terminology, Rububiyyah refers to believing in all the actions of Allah that are unique to him and are connected to his slaves, namely the creation, serenity and control. Many concepts stem from these, such as provisions, withholding, bestowing, giving life, causing death, resurrecting, giving benefit, relieving harm, and other concepts that are connected to the meaning of Allah being Ar-Rab. And obviously Rububiyyah is that Allah is in charge of his slaves, in the sense that he's taking care of them, ensuring their well-being, and obviously controlling our affairs. And Shaykh al-Islam said Ar-Rab is the one who cares for Yurabi, his slave, and controls his affairs. So moving on to the next bit. So Rububiyyah is based on three things that are only affirmed by Allah. So firstly is the creation, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is the creator, and no one has the ability to create except Allah. There's a great deal of evidence for it. So Surah Al-Araf verse 54, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says unquestionably his is the creation and the command, blessed is Allah, Lord of the worlds. In Surah Al-Hashr verse 24, Allah says He is Allah, the creator, the inventor, the fashioner. Another verse is in Surah Al-Nahid, verse 20, and those who invoke other than Allah create nothing, and they themselves are created. And those that they, so what that verse means is those that they, worship, they invoke other than Allah create nothing, as they themselves were created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why give deity, why give worship to someone who did not create you? And the next verse is in Surah Al-Hajj, verse 73, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, those who you invoke besides Allah will never create as much as a fly, even if they gather together for the purpose of creating something. They will never be able to do it, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of everything. And another verse is in Surah Al-Yunus, verse 34, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, are they of your partners any who begins creation and then repeats it? And there are many verses which speak of it. So I'm going to leave you here and conclude the episode here for today. I'm going to be going through obviously some of the innovations in the next video, so you can see them right now, but I'll be going through them in the next video. I'll leave you here. Fi manillah wa sallallahu wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Astaghfirullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.